Musashi was just another weak, worthless orphan of his village. Every damn day, his life started off rough, like a main character in a fucking tragedy like Rough. The kid lost both of his parents when a deadly illness swept through his village, and the villagers looked at him like he deserved it, all because his parents didn't worship the Oni, the so-called rulers of the land who apparently owned everyone's soul. By law, his relatives were supposed to take him in, but his uncle straight up refused. So Musashi waited outside their home for days, starving and hopeless, until they finally gave in. When they did, he promised to be helpful, grateful just to have a roof over his head. But that kindness came with chains. They made him follow strict rules, stay quiet, keep his head down, and never talk to anyone connected to his parents. When he asked why, they didn't answer. They just beat him. That's how his new life went, with work, silence, and pain. The kid tried to do good things, like returning his uncle's forgotten lunch. And what did he get for it? Another beating. At this point, even a rock had a better family than Musashi. Time passed, and Musashi grew into a quiet, distant boy, someone who just watched life move around him. But fate finally decided to cut him a break. One afternoon, he saw a boy named Kojiru secretly swinging a sword in the woods. Kojiru belonged to a Bushi family, warriors who were hated and treated like garbage by everyone. But instead of looking down on him, Musashi was impressed. The way Kojiru moved that blade looked cooler than anything he'd seen in this rotten village. So he approached him, and that moment changed everything. The two started training together, sharing dreams of becoming warriors strong enough to fight the Oni. For the first time in his worthless, miserable life, Musashi wasn't alone. They laughed, they sparred, they swore they'd one day form their own Bushi clan and take back the world. Years passed. Musashi went to school, but the more he learned, the more he wanted to throw his textbook at the teacher. According to the official history, humans once lived freely until a powerful demon lord showed up with his Oni army and crushed humanity. Now, the descendants of those who fought back were seen as villains, while everyone else worshipped the Oni like gods. The school called them Bushi traitors, but Musashi didn't buy that crap. He remembered the stories Kojiru's father told them about real Bushi who fought for freedom. When the teacher announced that the class would all become miners to serve the Oni, everyone cheered like it was some dream job. Everyone except Musashi. He sat there, dying inside. After class, he went to Kojiru and proudly showed him a pickaxe, calling it his weapon. Kojiru laughed at him, saying that wasn't a sword, but Musashi was dead serious. He'd been training with it, and to him, it was his blade. Kojiru snapped, calling his whole life a lie and blaming his father for feeding him false hope. The argument cut deep. Musashi left, determined to prove him wrong. The next day, Kojiru tried to calm his thoughts by cleaning the village streets with his sword, ignoring people mocking him. He remembered his father's words, that a Bushi's pride comes from carrying the sword with dignity, no matter how others treat you. Even if it meant looking like a crazy guy doing community service with a katana, he still believed in honor. Then came the mining ceremony. All the students lined up in front of massive gates, excited to meet their Oni masters. The guards collected everyone's tools before leading them inside, but as soon as they stepped in, chaos erupted. The Oni, the divine rulers, turned out to be man-eating monsters. They attacked and devoured people on sight. The fantasy of peaceful service shattered instantly. Musashi, without a weapon, watched people die around him. Instead of running, he grabbed a pickaxe and charged in like an idiot hero. The Oni smacked him around, but even bleeding out, he refused to surrender. While others screamed for mercy, Musashi yelled that it was a Bushi's duty to fight. One classmate reminded him that they were miners, not warriors. That tiny hesitation almost got him killed again. But as pain consumed him, he realized he'd been lying to himself, pretending to fit in. Deep down, he never wanted to mine. He wanted to fight. When an official mocked his dream, Musashi finally snapped and shouted it out loud. The official, clearly offended by passion, ordered his execution. But just when things looked hopeless, a loud engine roared through the chaos. Kojiru appeared, riding a mechanical beast called a Katetsu Ma. He crashed into the battlefield, saving Musashi in pure cinematic fashion. He tossed Musashi his pickaxe and a note, realizing his friend had truly been training all along. Then the official screamed for both of them to be killed, and the Oni rose again for round 2. Kojiru finally admitted his father was right. The Oni were monsters, not gods. Seeing the fight as his moment to prove himself, Musashi planted his pickaxe in the ground like a sword in its sheath. Kojiru recognized that stance immediately. Musashi leapt, drew his weapon, and sliced the Oni clean in half. Of course, more monsters appeared, because life loves torturing these two. Musashi told Kojiru that he didn't invite him to this fight because he wanted to win alone, but because victory without him would feel empty. Kojiru, touched and annoyed at the same time, agreed to fight beside him. The two fought together like brothers reborn from hellfire, recalling every move they practiced as kids. Finally, when the dust settled, Musashi extended his hand and asked Kojiru to be his partner once again. Kojiru accepted, but their reunion didn't last long. A red light cut through the sky and all the officials suddenly bowed. Descending from above was something that made even the Oni freeze, a Kishin, a godlike being of pure destruction. Musashi and Kojiru, without hesitation, hopped on the Katetsu motorcycle and charged straight toward it, cutting through waves of demons and rescuing anyone still breathing. Musashi's heart raced. This was it, their dream coming true. Their own Bushi band was finally being born. But Kojiru wasn't smiling. As they approached, a massive red bird flew across the sky and then transformed into a six-armed monster straight out of a nightmare. The Kishin slammed the ground, sending their motorcycle flying. Bruised and broken, Kojiru stood alone while Musashi lay unconscious. Kojiru tried to fight, but the beast grabbed his sword and tried to swallow it. Musashi woke up just in time to see his best friend being tossed around like a chew toy. Kojiru held on until the sword was swallowed whole. Devastated and furious, he froze, until Musashi, now awake, charged toward the creature with raw rage. He climbed onto its stomach and went full maniac mode, swinging his pickaxe like a weapon of divine vengeance. The Kishin roared, but Musashi didn't stop. Each hit weakened the monster more, his strikes syncing with its own movements until the beast began to falter. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was destiny pounding back at fate with a pickaxe. With one final bone-shattering swing, Musashi's pickaxe smashed into the Kishin's stomach, splitting it open like a volcano ready to blow. The massive creature roared in agony before collapsing, shaking the entire battlefield. Musashi was thrown into the air, landing right in the middle of the monster's stomach goo, basically an acid jacuzzi of death. Kojiru screamed, thinking his friend had been digested, but moments later, Musashi crawled out, covered in slime, and smelling like fresh demon guts, yet somehow alive. Even better, he was holding Kojiru's sword like a trophy. He handed it back, and Kojiru, overwhelmed, could barely speak, mostly because he was trying not to puke from the smell. Before they could celebrate their "we didn't die" moment, the officials shouted about something approaching. A massive shadow loomed over the horizon, a fortress on wheels rumbling closer. Musashi and Kojiru climbed a nearby tower for a better look, and what they saw left them speechless. The fortress stopped before a glowing barrier, and then, in a burst of light, dozens of Bushi warriors on motorcycles tore through it, storming straight toward the Kishin like total badasses. It was the legendary Teada clan, one of the most feared Bushi bands in existence. Musashi's jaw dropped, while Kojiru's eyes gleamed with excitement. These were real Bushi, warriors who actually lived their childhood dream. Their leader, Captain Naotora, arrived in style, cutting through debris as he landed in front of them. He told the boys to stand back since the battle was too dangerous for amateurs. But Musashi, ever the stubborn idiot, declared that he and Kojiru were Bushi too and proudly claimed credit for wounding the Kishin. Naotora chuckled, telling him that cracking a monster's stomach didn't count because it could regenerate. Musashi's ego deflated instantly. Turns out his big victory was just a warm-up. Naotora ordered his troops to evacuate the miners while preparing his squad for the real fight. The Kishin roared again, spitting waves of fire like a pissed-off dragon. Kojiru, the voice of reason for once, begged Musashi to fall back, but Musashi refused. He'd already tasted the dream of being a Bushi. There was no way he'd retreat now. Fueled by pride and stupidity, he charged forward once more. Kojiru sighed, cursed under his breath, and followed his partner in crime. Musashi attacked the Kishin again, swinging with everything he had, only to watch the wound heal instantly. Before he could figure out what was happening, a glowing lasso wrapped around him, yanking him straight to the Teada base camp. Furious, he demanded to be released, insisting that this was his first real victory and he wasn't backing out. Naotora calmly asked why he was so obsessed, and Musashi, with burning eyes, said it was because this fight was his dream. A dream worth dying for. Naotora sighed, pointing to the battlefield where it took his entire army just to restrain one of the Kishin's legs. He told Musashi that wanting glory was fine, but without experience, dreams could kill faster than any demon. Still, Musashi refused to back down. He broke free from the lasso and ran straight back into the chaos. Naotora smirked, calling him a true Bushi and letting him go. As the Teada forces battled the monster, Musashi began smashing the ground beneath it, opening weak spots for attacks. Remembering Naotora's warning that he couldn't win alone, he still pressed forward. Then, Kojiru noticed something. A faint glow near the Kishin's navel, a horn that pulsed with energy. He shouted for Musashi to hit it, but when Musashi swung, his pickaxe cracked in half. The Kishin raised its head, readying a massive fireball that could vaporize everything. At the last moment, Naotora stepped in. He praised Musashi's guts, then leapt with unreal speed and sliced clean through the horn, shattering the monster's core. The Kishin exploded, the blast shaking the valley. Musashi stood frozen, half proud and half pissed that he didn't land the finishing blow. Yotaro patted him on the shoulder, saying victory wasn't about who swung last, but about everyone chasing the same dream. The Teada clan absorbed the Kishin's remaining power while their warriors cheered. The miners cried tears of relief, finally freed from the Oni's control. Kojiru watched, overwhelmed. This was the same moment his father had always talked about. Musashi recalled an image from one of their Bushi scrolls showing a similar scene. Heroes standing tall after slaying evil. For the first time, he truly believed the Bushi were heroes, not villains. Outside the fortress, Yotaro addressed the crowd, his voice booming with confidence. He promised to create a world free from Oni rule and asked everyone to join that cause. Musashi, however, couldn't shake off his frustration about losing what he thought was his big win. Eventually, he blurted it out, and to his surprise, Yotaro laughed and handed him a small purple gem as a reward. They shared a light moment, mentor and student, warrior and dreamer. That night, Musashi studied the gem. It bore a strange symbol, one used by Oni officials. He almost tossed it away but stopped when the light inside reminded him of a kaleidoscope. As he turned it, he realized it could actually reveal Oni. Intrigued, Musashi and Kojiru dug through their Bushi scrolls for answers. They learned that the Bushi's true duty wasn't just to kill Kishin. It was to return their treasures to the earth and unite the land under one conqueror, a king who would rule all of Hinamoto. Musashi suddenly understood Naotora's real ambition, to defeat all Kishin and unite the world under his rule. The next morning, he confronted Naotora about it. Instead of denying it, Naotora smiled, impressed by the boy's insight, and proudly confirmed it. Musashi argued that no one had ever done that in 150 years, but Naotora didn't flinch. So Musashi made a vow. He would stop Naotora's plan by creating his own Bushi band and taking down every Kishin himself. Naotora grinned, calling him a fool but wishing him luck anyway. And so, Musashi and Kojiru packed their things and set off on their journey, ready to carve their own legend. They promised not to argue along the way, which, of course, lasted all of 5 minutes. When their food ran out, both turned into starving animals. Kojiru bragged about his superior survival skills, catching fish like a smug pro. Musashi, not to be outdone, crossed the river to fish on his own. But halfway through, he realized how dumb the fight was and decided to apologize. When he came back, he found Kojiru lying on the ground, bleeding. Before he could even react, a girl tackled him out of nowhere, pinning him down with terrifying speed. She introduced herself as Tigumi and announced that both boys were now her prisoners. The next thing they knew, they were dragged to her clan's fortress and locked up like common thieves. Not long after, Lord Hideo, the clan leader, scolded Tigumi for failing to find talented Bushi to join their forces. He warned her that in the next Oni invasion, everyone in their town, even children and the elderly, would be forced to fight. Tigumi protested, her voice shaking with anger and grief, but Hideo ignored her and walked away. Tears welled up in her eyes as she left the hall. Later that night, she went to see Musashi and Kojiru again. She tried to sound tough, asking about their strange motorcycle, but the boys noticed something different. Her eyes were still red from crying. Tigumi finally opened up, her face pale with worry. She explained that a herd of monstrous creatures called Kodama Oni was heading straight for the fortress, and when they arrived, the town would be wiped off the map. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Musashi, seeing her struggle, told her to stop bottling everything inside and just be honest about what she felt. After a long pause, Tigumi admitted she was terrified, not just of the Oni, but of standing up to Lord Hideo. Deep down, she knew he was wrong, but fear had her chained like a prisoner. She wanted to protect her people, yet she couldn't even protect herself from her own cowardice. Meanwhile, the sound of distant roars echoed through the air. The Kodama Oni were getting closer, tearing through everything like an army of tanks. That was Musashi's cue to stop being a prisoner. He and Kojiru broke out of their cell like two idiots on a mission. Kojiru used his fishing hook to steal the keys from the wall, because apparently, fishing skills were more useful than swords now. They found their motorcycle but still needed their weapons. As dawn broke, the two saw the horizon burning orange, and the Kodama herd charging like a living storm. Inside the fortress, Lord Hideo was doing his best impression of a dictator, gathering terrified villagers and shouting that they would all join him in battle. The people begged for mercy, saying they were just farmers, not soldiers. But Hideo didn't care. He called them cowards and told them to embrace war. Yeah, real motivational speech there, buddy. When they tried to escape, his soldiers surrounded them. Just then, a smoke bomb exploded. Chaos everywhere. Hideo turned, furious, as Tigumi stepped forward, finally defying him. She demanded he stop this madness and focus on protecting the townspeople instead of sacrificing them. Hideo's rage hit the ceiling, suspecting she was part of a rebellion. Before he could strike, two silhouettes emerged from the smoke, Musashi and Kojiru, looking cooler than ever, mowing through soldiers like it was nothing. Tigumi, seeing her chance, decided she was done being scared. Fueled by her sister's memory, she charged at Hideo, weapons ready. But Hideo, knowing her weaknesses, blocked her attacks with ease and knocked her down, calling her useless. That word, useless, broke something inside her. With blood on her lips, she spat right in his face and screamed that she'd never bow to him again. Her shout echoed through the fortress. The villagers, once terrified, now looked at her with new courage. She called out to them, telling them that living under Hideo's rule was worse than dying free. Moved by her words, they rose up beside her. Strengthened by their support, Tsugumi found her resolve. Her fear hadn't come from Hideo. It came from feeling alone, but not anymore. When Hideo fired a volley of arrows, she blocked them all like a beast unleashed. Her green rope weapon glowed as she wrapped it around him, slammed him to the ground, and pinned him down. The almighty Lord Hideo, the tyrant of the fortress, was defeated by the very girl he called weak. With Hideo down, the villagers fled from the fortress, escaping into the open fields as the Oni herd thundered closer. Everyone made it out, except Tsugumi. She stayed behind to guard Hideo, knowing there was no time left. The demon's roars shook the air. People begged her to run, but she smiled softly. She knew she wouldn't make it out alive, but at least she'd saved her people. It was what her sister would have done. But just as the first Oni lunged, a familiar roar echoed behind her. Musashi and Kojiru, blasting through the dust on their motorcycle like absolute legends. They grabbed Tsugumi's hands, dragged her onto the bike, and sped off with Hideo tied up in the back like a sack of potatoes. Musashi praised her bravery, and for the first time in ages, Tsugumi smiled, not out of relief, but pride. She'd finally become the warrior she always wanted to be. Later, as the trio rested, Musashi invited her to join them on their journey. She agreed, and the three set off toward their next destination, with the wind at their backs and a new goal in their hearts. Using the purple gem, Musashi sensed a blue Kishin nearby, their next target. That night, Musashi had a weird dream, a flashback of when he threw a rock at Kojiru's dad as a kid. He woke up sweating, only to find an Oni gnawing on Kojiru's sword. Of course, he did what any sane person would do, chased it down barefoot. Using a makeshift staff made from his broken pickaxe, he attacked, but the stick snapped in half every time he swung. The Oni, probably annoyed, threw him like garbage. But before he could get up, a mysterious man appeared, Shirou, standing in a strange field filled with countless swords buried in the ground. The man spoke softly to the blades like they were alive. When his eyes met Musashi's, Musashi felt something sharp pierce through his soul. Shiru handed him a sword, and the moment Musashi gripped it, a rush of dark energy surged through him. Black crystals spread across his arm and his body pulsed with power. With one clean swing, he cut off the Oni's horn and saved Kojiru's sword. Shiru, watching from the distance, smiled faintly and asked if it was Musashi's first time using a Kitetsu sword. Musashi nodded, still in shock. But before he could ask more, the sword suddenly shattered in his hand. Shirou didn't seem surprised at all. He just smirked, saying Musashi might be special. A girl appeared behind him, clearly tired of his sword obsession, calling him her master before they vanished into thin air. Musashi blinked. The sword field was gone. When Kojiru and Tsugumi found him, they thought he'd fallen asleep again, but Musashi insisted it was real. He described the sword, the power, the feeling. Kojiru just asked what a Kitetsu sword even was. Musashi shrugged, no clue. Tsugumi, on the other hand, pulled out her own weapon and explained that Kitetsu swords were the only blades capable of destroying Oni horns. Kojiru assumed they were rare treasures, but Tsugumi smirked and said they could actually be bought for the right price. Their journey led them to a bustling market built around old Bushi fortresses, where warriors and merchants gathered whenever a Kishin appeared nearby. Stalls sold Kitetsu swords, food, and all kinds of gear. Musashi's eyes lit up like a kid in a candy store. He wanted his own Kitetsu blade immediately. Tsugumi guided him to an auction where 25 master-crafted swords were being sold. The weapons gleamed under the sunlight, each one whispering for a warrior to claim it. Mitsuru, the head blacksmith, told Musashi to pick the blade that called to his heart, because a true Bushi's soul was bonded to their sword. As everyone began their search, Musashi's attention locked on a fiery red sword that pulsed with energy, while Kojiru quietly picked one that everyone else ignored. Mitsuru smiled approvingly and told them to hold the hilts. The moment they did, the swords began to glow. Mitsuru explained that this was the trial, a test where the sword itself chose its master. Kojiru's heartbeat raced. Visions flashed before his eyes. As he overcame them, his sword blazed blue, and two radiant stone wings sprouted behind him. The trial was complete. Tsugumi clapped proudly, and for the first time, Kojiru felt a deep, unshakable bond with his new sword, as if it had been waiting for him all along. Curious, he turned to Mitsuru and asked what all those flashy colors meant. Mitsuru smiled, explaining that every glow revealed the soul's essence. Basically, each Bushi had a color that reflected their inner power. There were 5 in total: red, green, yellow, blue, and white. Blue was the most common, but a proper Bushi band needed a good color mix for balance, kind of like a deadly Power Rangers team. Everyone then turned to Musashi, waiting to see what color he'd get. But his sword trial didn't go the way anyone expected. The moment he touched the hilt, his mind was thrown into chaos. He relived that dark memory of Kojiru's father, the day the man was punished and executed. His heart twisted, the world warped, and out of nowhere, a floating black sphere appeared before him, with one huge glowing eye staring into his soul. It slowly changed shape, becoming a woman who felt strangely familiar. She didn't speak, but when she embraced him, it felt warm and safe, until she morphed again into a massive man who crushed his arms and told him he wasn't needed. Pain exploded through Musashi's body as black stones burst out of his skin like a curse. Outside the vision, Mitsuru frowned, whispering that he was forsaken. The sword's glow faded, and Musashi collapsed, dropping it. Kojiru and Tsugumi rushed over, but he waved them off, pretending to be fine, which, obviously, he wasn't. He tried another sword, then another, then 6 more. All of them rejected him like bad Tinder matches. Finally, Mitsuru told him the brutal truth. He couldn't use a Kitetsu blade because his soul was black. That meant no sword would ever choose him. Musashi froze. His dream, his whole reason for fighting, was suddenly gone. He asked if he could change, maybe through training or hard work, but Mitsuru shook her head. A soul's color never changes. She told him to give up on becoming a Bushi. For the first time, Musashi went completely silent. He sat there, lost in thought, realizing the dream he'd chased since childhood might have just died. He remembered how people once told him to become a farmer instead. Maybe they were right. Kojiru and Tsugumi approached to comfort him, but before anyone could say a word, the air filled with screams. A horde of Oni stormed the town, announcing the arrival of a Kishin at the mountain summit. Everyone grabbed their weapons. Musashi wanted to fight too, but fear froze him. He had no blade. When an Oni lunged at him, Kojiru jumped in and sliced it clean in half with his glowing sword. The crowd cheered for Kojiru like he was a hero reborn, and Musashi could only watch from the sidelines, proud but crushed. Soon, all the Bushi were called to head for the mountain to face the Kishin. Musashi stayed behind, wishing Kojiru and Tsugumi good luck. Kojiru didn't argue, he just nodded and left. Sitting alone, Musashi stared at his hands, wondering if there was any way to change fate. That's when Shiru appeared again, casually saying he saw everything. He revealed something shocking. Black crystals pulsed inside his own body too. He invited Musashi to join him, saying they were the same. Curious but cautious, Musashi asked how he could get stronger. Shirou smirked and said Musashi needed to embrace the black crystal instead of rejecting it. To prove his power, Shirou swung his sword and carved a massive hole in the ground like it was nothing. Then he tossed Musashi a blade, telling him to try the sword trial again. He claimed Musashi could become the ultimate Kitetsu blade himself, not just wield one. Musashi refused. He didn't want to become a weapon. He just wanted to fight alongside his friends. That answer pissed Shirou off. He smirked and said, if Musashi wouldn't become a blade, then his friends could. He announced that he'd be heading to the mountain to use them as sword materials. Musashi charged at him in anger, but Shirou shoved him straight into the massive pit he'd created and threw the blade down after him. Musashi fell for what felt like forever. He tried to grab the walls but couldn't stop. Just before slamming into the lava below, he caught the sword and jammed it into the wall to slow his fall. The problem? The blade reacted instantly, and black crystals began spreading across his body. His arms stiffened, his chest burned, and he could feel himself turning to stone. Watching from above, Shirou's assistant Nanao calmly stated that he had 2 options: let go and fall into the lava, or hold on and become stone. Musashi refused to give up. He smashed his head against the wall to stay awake, because apparently headbutting rocks was his survival plan. Using the growing crystals like claws, he tried to climb, but a mysterious female voice whispered for him to hide. Suddenly, his entire body turned black, covered in crystal armor. He dropped into the lava, but somehow didn't burn. Inside his subconscious, he met the goddess from his earlier sword trial. She appeared before him again, telling him to stay put where it was safe. But Musashi shook his head. His friends were out there fighting. He had to go back. The goddess grew massive, grabbing his hand and warned that returning would only hurt them. She forced him to relive his worst memories, his lonely childhood, losing his parents, being treated like trash by relatives. She showed him the moment he threw a rock at Kojiru's father, desperate for attention. She told him that his dream of becoming a warrior didn't come from courage. It came from fear, a fear of being alone. Because of that, she said he wasn't worthy of a Kitetsu blade. Musashi's body began to turn completely to stone as she revealed the truth. They were connected. If he left, she'd be captured. That meant he couldn't return to the surface. Trapped and helpless, Musashi's dream crumbled once again. Meanwhile, Above ground, Kojiru, Tsugumi, and the other Bushi reached the mountain, only to find Shiru waiting. He casually said the Kishin was already dead. Kojiru demanded to know who he was, but Shiru ignored him. 5 Bushi surrounded him for answers. In a single swing, Shiru sliced all 5 down, just like that. The air went cold. He declared himself a sword hunter, someone who killed Bushi and took their kitetsu blades. The others tried to fight back, but Shiru slammed his sword into the ground, splitting the earth apart and blasting everyone off their feet. Kojiru and Tsugumi watched in horror as the rest of the Bushi fell. Shiru turned to Kojiru saying Musashi was already dead, turned into sword material, and that Kojiru would be next. Kojiru froze, convinced his friend was gone, but deep beneath the mountain, Musashi was still alive, encased in crystal, preserved under the lava. The goddess kept him trapped to protect him and herself. Suddenly, a green rope dropped into the lava and wrapped around him, pulling him upward. The black crystal shattered and Musashi gasped for air. Nanao stood above, admitting she'd tried to extract him only after he turned completely to stone so she could capture the goddess inside him. But she messed up and pulled him out too early. Musashi didn't care about her mistake. He thanked her, truly grateful to be alive, then bolted toward the mountain. As he ran, he remembered the goddess's words, that he only wanted to fight to escape loneliness. But Musashi clenched his fists, his eyes burning with determination. She was wrong. He didn't fight because he feared being alone. He fought because he'd finally found people worth fighting for. As Musashi sprinted toward the mountain, his mind flashed back to an old memory, the one that still haunted him. He remembered that stupid moment when, as a lonely kid desperate for attention, he threw a rock at Kojiru's dad and somehow got praised for it. That praise felt good for a second, until guilt hit him like a truck. Later that night, he dragged his small, terrified self to Kojiru's house to apologize. Instead of yelling or beating him, Kojiru's father opened the door with a warm smile and welcomed him inside. Musashi cried, shaking like a wet puppy, but the man just patted his head and said he understood. He even thanked Musashi for being Kojiru's friend, said the boy had saved them both just by existing. That night, Musashi stopped being just a lonely orphan. He became family. He moved in, trained as a Bushi, and learned what real kindness looked like, all thanks to that man. But while Musashi was lost in memory, chaos erupted on the mountain. Shirou was cutting through Bushi warriors like he was speedrunning a massacre, chasing down Kojiru. He caught up, sword raised for the kill, until Musashi appeared. Shirou froze, intrigued by what he saw. Musashi's body was still half fused with the black stone, meaning the goddess hadn't finished judging him. Curious to see what would happen if Musashi died now, Shirou grinned like a maniac. Musashi, Kojiru, and Tsugumi readied themselves for battle, but Shirou's assistant, Nanao, stepped forward, saying this fight was hers. She split her staff into 7 glowing green blades, her kitetsu sword, and launched them in rapid bursts like a living tornado. The trio barely dodged as the blades curved midair, coming back faster with every throw. Shirou stood back, arms crossed, clearly enjoying the show. Musashi analyzed her attacks and decided he could handle it. Big mistake. He charged head first, blocking 3 of the blades before Nanao threw a 4th one that nearly took his head off. Thinking fast, he jammed his sword into a rock like a scabbard, used it as leverage, and flipped right over her attack. Smooth as hell. For a moment, it looked like he'd actually won that exchange. Then, Nanao countered with a strike so fast, it sent him flying across the field. After regrouping, Musashi, Kojiru, and Tsugumi came up with a plan, the classic 3-on-1 special. Nanao noticed and smirked. Her whip-like blades could keep them all away, no problem. But when Musashi and Tsugumi suddenly sprinted in the opposite direction, leaving Kojiru in front of her, she got confused. She thought they were retreating, so she ignored Kojiru and aimed for Musashi. Big mistake. It was all part of their trap. As Nanao hurled her blades, Tsugumi used her whip to snag and pin them midair, freezing them in place. That gave Musashi the perfect opening to rush in and shatter part of Nanao's staff, destroying one of her 7 blades. For the first time, she looked shocked. The team grinned, thinking they had this in the bag, but then Shirou stepped forward, unimpressed, and told Nanao to stop. He called her too weak and took her place. The air around him shifted. His sword pulsed with dark energy as he raised it high. Tsugumi felt her blood run cold. Shirou had never used this move before. Whatever was coming next, it wasn't going to be pretty. With one smooth swing, Shirou unleashed a black ring of energy. At first, nothing happened. Then the ground trembled. Musashi sensed danger instantly, yelling for everyone to brace themselves. A purple barrier of light erupted around the battlefield. Shirou smirked, saying this technique was special. Suddenly, the mountain began to crack apart beneath their feet. The very ground flipped upside down, and everyone fell into the void. Time froze mid-fall. The goddess appeared, her voice echoing through the still air. She told Musashi she was the one who stopped time, and that Shirou was her enemy. He wanted to steal her power by killing Musashi. She offered to save Musashi alone by taking his soul away from the danger, but Musashi refused. He said he'd face death with his friends because they were his strength and purpose. The goddess smiled, finally seeing what made him different. She called him worthy and lent him her power, even taking control of his body for a moment to show him how it worked. Time resumed. Black crystals burst into the air, glowing like stars. Every sword on the battlefield, even Shiru's and Nanao's, began to radiate as their blade energy was drawn into the crystal. The goddess revealed the truth. Every Kitetsu blade holds a special force called blade energy, and only one black stone in existence can control it, the one that belonged to her, the Obsidian Goddess, who had been living inside Musashi all along. She summoned Shirou's sword right out of his hand, calling him unworthy, and shattered his black ring technique, flipping the mountain back to normal and saving everyone. When Musashi landed, Kojiru looked at him like he was seeing a god. Musashi now bore the goddess's aura, his body glowing with divine light. Nanao tried to attack again, but the goddess easily deflected all her blade energy like it was child's play. She explained that those with black crystals could manipulate blade energy, absorbing or repelling it. Such people were rare and feared. They were called the Forsaken. Kojiru realized just how dangerous Musashi had become, but the goddess warned that her power was fading. Shirou recalled his sword while she admitted her physical form couldn't hold much longer. She was draining fast and would soon fall back asleep inside Musashi. When that happened, he'd lose the obsidian power, but enemies like Shirou would still come for him. She turned to Kojiru and asked him to protect Musashi. Kojiru nodded without hesitation. The goddess thanked him, then faced Shirou. He smiled, asking her to join him, but she refused and declared that she'd drive him away with the last of her strength. She called on every Bushi present, linking their blade energy into one united force. She told them that one Bushi alone might be weak, but together they could stand against any darkness. As the air pulsed with raw energy, she whispered in Musashi's mind that she would now return to sleep inside him. She urged him to live on because he was her vessel, and warned that Kojiru's father, her previous vessel, had died before finishing their mission. Musashi tried to ask more, but there was no time. The goddess unleashed her final attack. Shirou lunged, but her power crushed him, ripping apart parts of the mountain. When the light faded, Shirou was gone, and everyone else was safe. Musashi could still feel the goddess inside him, her presence warm and fading. His friends rushed over, cheering at their victory, but Musashi stood quietly, remembering what she said about Kojiru's father. Tsugumi noticed his sword had shattered completely. Mitsuru explained it had absorbed too much power. Everyone thanked Musashi for saving them, calling him a hero, but he was already focused on the next step. He asked Tsugumi to set up another sword trial. This time, the test was held in front of a massive crowd. Musashi chose the same sword he had before. People whispered, worried he'd fail again, but Musashi was calm. When he gripped the blade, it glowed bright red, a rare color of incredible power. The crowd went wild, cheering his name so loud that poor Kojiru got shoved to the side. Tsugumi explained that red blade energy was rare and symbolized unyielding will. Musashi smiled proudly, though Kojiru looked a little salty about being ignored. Musashi noticed, pulled him aside, and said that during the trial he saw their father, and that the goddess seemed to know him. Kojiru froze in disbelief. That night, Kojiru returned with supplies, food, and a map full of new territories. Musashi and Tsugumi were already waiting, ready to move forward. As the sun rose, the three of them, Musashi, Tsugumi, and Kojiru, set off again, ready for their next adventure. Their journey led them into a foggy, dangerous swamp, and if Musashi thought things were finally calming down, he was dead wrong. The group barely had time to breathe after their last fight when nature itself decided to throw hands. Out of nowhere, a huge plant-type Oni popped up like a demonic Venus flytrap and grabbed Tsugumi and Kojiru with its vines. The thing looked like it crawled out of a cursed garden. But before panic could set in, Musashi, powered by adrenaline and maybe a bit of stupidity, rushed forward without hesitation. Confident in his new Kitetsu sword, he charged his blade energy and slashed straight at the Oni's horn. The hit caused an explosion so massive it could have been mistaken for a mini nuke. When the smoke cleared, the Oni was gone, reduced to monster salad. Musashi, covered in dust, quickly checked his friends. They were shaken but alive, proving once again that luck loves idiots. While scanning the battlefield, Musashi noticed something twitching inside a cocoon. Thinking fast, he sliced it open and pulled out a young girl, barely conscious but alive. The girl blinked up at him, pointed out the cut on his cheek, but Musashi brushed it off like a true hero, or a guy too cool to care. She smiled softly, and in that instant, both Musashi and Kojiru froze. The girl was stunning, and Tsugumi immediately sensed the brain malfunction in both boys. Musashi even caught himself thinking he might be back in the game. Apparently, saving princesses now counted as flirting. Before anyone could say anything, an old man sprinted toward them, shouting the girl's name. He called her princess, and the group exchanged confused looks. The girl finally stood tall and introduced herself as Princess Machiru, explaining she'd been captured by the Oni before Musashi showed up and played the hero. Tsugumi asked for her full name and the old man bowed, introducing her with royal flair. Turns out they were headed to Port Hera for a major battle that could decide the nation's fate. Lord Yusuji himself had called a gathering of Bushi bands, and it sounded like a big deal. Deciding they couldn't just walk away from something that epic, Musashi and his squad tagged along. On the road, Musashi tried to talk to Michiru, but the princess was shy, answering with awkward silence. Kojiru, ever the wingman turned third wheel, changed the subject by asking about the Sonata Alliance, a coalition of Bushi bands working together. Tsugumi began explaining it like a history teacher while Musashi sat there dying inside because his flirting attempts kept getting hijacked by political talk. When he mentioned her name again, Michiru actually looked surprised he remembered. Progress, barely. As they traveled along a narrow mountain path, the cart suddenly hit a bump, sending Michiru flying straight toward a cliff. Without thinking, Musashi jumped after her. The man had no plan, just pure impulse. As they fell, Musashi realized just how dumb that decision was. Until Michiru drew her sword. The blade glowed blue, releasing crystal-like energy that slowed their fall like a magical parachute. Musashi couldn't help but admire her skill and her weapon. While floating down, Michiru mentioned her father had given her the sword and always encouraged her training. She admitted she didn't talk much to strangers because she was shy, and Musashi just laughed, relieved she wasn't mad that he nearly broke her spine saving her. She suggested he should come south with her, but Musashi shook his head, saying his path led east. Michiru frowned and pointed toward a towering black wall in the distance. As they approached, Musashi's jaw dropped. That wall wasn't a wall. It was a gigantic, moving Kishin, crushing everything in its path like a walking apocalypse. When he asked what the hell it was, Michiru revealed the truth. That monster was the first Kishin to ever appear in Hinamoto, over 150 years ago. Legends said it tore the land apart, splitting people into two groups, those who fought it and those crazy enough to worship it. The worshippers mined ores to feed it, and over time it evolved into the massive Black Kishin, the monster now covering half the country. The squad went silent, faces pale. The old man added that for over a century, every Bushi had dreamed of slaying it and failed. If left alone, it would eventually devour the entire nation. Musashi clenched his fist, swearing he'd destroy it. Tsugumi, ever the voice of reason, reminded him that maybe, just maybe, he shouldn't try to solo a god. The old man cut in proudly, saying their leader Lord Yusuji, one of the 5 great generals, was strong enough to make it possible. Defeating the Kishin on Awaji Island, known as Orochi, would be the first step toward that victory. He invited Musashi and his friends to join the mission. Michiru and the old man then departed, leaving Musashi's group to process everything. Tsugumi wondered if her sister already knew about the Kishin. Musashi asked Kojiru if their father might have known, but Kojiru said the scroll their dad left behind never mentioned it. When they checked again, Tsugumi noticed the Sonata band's seal on the scroll, suggesting Kojiru's father might have once been part of them. That revelation shocked both boys. Determined to learn the truth, they agreed to change their route and head to Port Hara instead of east. Tsugumi cheered that they'd finally see the ocean, but the boys didn't seem impressed. Country kids, through and through. When they finally reached the coast, though, even Musashi couldn't hide his awe. The endless sea stretched before them like a new beginning. Across the water, they spotted a massive fortress bearing the Sonata emblem. Excited, they headed there, hoping to find answers about Kojiru's father. But as soon as they arrived, guards blocked them, saying Lord Yusuji was too busy preparing for war to meet nobodies. The place was packed with elite warriors from the Alliance, and when someone asked what band they were from, Musashi proudly declared, the Kanamaki band. Kojiru added that they weren't part of the Alliance, and immediately regretted it. The entire camp turned on them, giving death stares like they'd just insulted everyone's ancestors. The commander ordered their capture to verify who they were. Tsugumi and Kojiru got surrounded while Musashi tried to make a break for it, and immediately got kicked down by a random Bushi who called him weak. Things looked bad until a massive Kitatesu mount rolled in, bearing the Yusuji crest. Everyone dropped to their knees, except Musashi and Kojiru, who had no clue what was happening. A confident man stepped out, Naotora, leader of the Teada band and one of the 5 great generals. He eyed Musashi with amusement and said he remembered him, clearly entertained by Musashi's casual way of speaking. Everyone else froze, shocked that Musashi was chatting with a living legend like an old drinking buddy. Naotora chuckled, ordered the group detained, then immediately changed his mind, saying Musashi and his friends worked for him. Before they could even react, he turned and left to meet Lord Sonata. Musashi tried to chase after him, demanding to see Lord Yusuji, but Naotora waved him off like a parent ignoring a loud toddler. They were escorted to their lodging by Yamamoto, who inspected the mysterious scroll. Musashi whispered to Kojiru that maybe they could get close to Lord Yusuji through Naotora, but Yamamoto shut that idea down fast. Outsiders weren't trusted, especially not rivals of the Sonata Alliance. Kojiru sank into silence, frustrated about their father's secrets. Musashi promised they'd uncover the truth no matter what. Before leaving, Yamamoto warned them to stay far from the upcoming battle. The Kishin Orochi on Awaji Island wasn't just big, it was one of the Black Kishin's offspring, 10 times more powerful than any Oni they'd fought before. For 150 years, no one had managed to kill it. But Musashi, being Musashi, wasn't backing down. Tsugumi sighed, then used her whip to literally throw him over the fortress wall so he could sneak in. Inside, Musashi found a man sitting quietly on a rooftop. The stranger had a calm presence, and the two started talking about the castle and the soldiers below. Musashi asked if the man was a Bushi, but he only smiled, saying he just wanted to protect young warriors. Before Musashi could press further, Naotora appeared and addressed the man as Lord Yusuji. Musashi froze. He'd been casually talking to the guy he'd been trying to meet all along. Before he could speak, Naotora's tone shifted. He accused Musashi of trespassing, a crime punishable by execution. And just like that, Musashi's bold plan turned into a death sentence. Lord Yusuji looked ready to end Musashi's life right there, but thanks to Naotora's interference, he decided to let the kid live, barely. Instead of execution, Musashi got drafted into service at the barracks, which basically meant doing grunt work under strict supervision. Separated from Tsugumi and Kojiru, Musashi found himself surrounded by hardened warriors who looked like they ate nails for breakfast. But instead of panicking, he mentally prepared himself, drawing on his rough childhood to blend in. He quickly learned the unspoken rules: who had power, who had ego, and who you should never make eye contact with unless you wanted to die early. It didn't take long before tension started bubbling. One loudmouth suggested that the strongest among them should lead, and immediately the room split into camps. Akihiro, the proud son of the Shimazu clan leader, was nominated, but Katsumi from the Amako clan wasn't impressed and mocked him, asking if daddy's money counted as strength. The Shimazu members laughed it off, tossing back insults about the Amako clan's fallen glory. Within minutes, the barracks turned into a roast session. Right when the fight was about to break out, Machiru appeared, warning Musashi to stay cautious for the upcoming battle. But that didn't stop the testosterone-fueled chaos. To settle it, they agreed on a mock battle, dull sides of swords only to keep things honorable. The rules were simple: last one standing or push the others out. Katsumi targeted Musashi first, clearly thinking he'd be an easy warm-up round. But Musashi, fueled by ego and survival instinct, blocked every single strike. Katsumi blinked in disbelief, realizing this random recruit wasn't a pushover. Akihiro stepped in next, swinging his blade with precision, but Musashi deflected it with ease. The crowd gasped. They hadn't expected the newbie to have actual skill. Kanatu joined in too, striking 3 times, yet Musashi parried each one, his excitement building. For once, all those hours of training and getting his butt kicked by life were paying off. Musashi leapt into the air for a finishing blow, but Katsumi blocked it and the crowd went wild. 2 girls in the back started cheering for him like he was a rock star, while others whispered, wondering who this unknown warrior was. The Shimazu squad, annoyed that the spotlight was being stolen, ordered Akihiro to shut it down. Akihiro didn't hesitate. He tried to sneak a kick at Musashi from behind, but Musashi dodged it, sending Kanatu stumbling instead. The Shimazu guys then told Akihiro to use his special trick. That's when Musashi realized this wasn't just a sparring match. Akihiro had a damn hidden blade in his shoe. 1 kick later, Musashi went flying straight into a wall. Akihiro's spinning attacks were like a blender, fast, flashy, and impossible to read. Musashi tried to hold his ground, but Akihiro's raw power overwhelmed him. In the end, both he and Katsumi got wrecked, with Musashi eating dirt multiple times before the fight ended. Accepting defeat, Musashi stood up, dusted himself off, and offered Akihiro a handshake, naming him unit commander. He even helped Katsumi to his feet, calling him a comrade, despite clearly wanting to knock Akihiro out again. Akihiro accepted the gesture but smirked, accusing Musashi of faking humility for attention. Musashi denied it, but Akihiro made it official. Both he and Katsumi were unfit for command. He warned everyone that they'd depart for Awaji Island at dawn under his leadership, and any disobedience would be punished. The mood turned icy. Musashi, ever the peacekeeper, tried to suggest an open discussion where everyone could voice opinions. Akihiro basically told him to shut up. Feeling like an unwanted guest at his own dinner, Musashi quietly slipped away. When he found Tsugumi and Kojiru later, they were laughing with their new unit, clearly enjoying their new life. Kojiru mentioned he'd thought of leaving to search for his father, but decided to stay. Tsugumi felt like they were forgetting something, but they both brushed it off. Overhearing this, Musashi's heart sank. They had actually forgotten him. The next morning, the fleet set sail toward Awaji Island. The sea was calm at first, too calm. That peace shattered when several lesser Oni rose from the water, their massive bodies circling the ships like sharks. Orders were shouted, blades drawn, and chaos erupted. Musashi rushed to attack, aiming for the horns as usual, but his strike bounced right off. These Oni weren't the same weaklings he'd faced before. Their horns were like steel. One monster slammed into a ship, causing it to tilt dangerously. Musashi climbed up and struck again, only to be tossed back. Then, out of nowhere, a red flash cut through the air. The Oni's horn split cleanly in two, and before Musashi could even blink, another horn shattered. Standing on a nearby ship was Nao, one of Yusuji's top 3 warriors, known as the Three Dragons. He looked like someone who could end the apocalypse before breakfast. With his 2 allies, he absorbed the Oni's energy as if it were routine work. But more Oni kept coming, shaking the ships violently. Fear spread among the ranks, yet Nao's voice boomed across the sea, telling everyone to stand strong. Musashi tried to rally morale too, but nobody listened. They were too busy fangirling over the living legend. Nao linked the monsters together with chains of blade energy and shattered their horns one by one. The sight reignited everyone's courage. Swords were raised and the entire fleet roared in unity. Nao then told them that one man alone couldn't win, but those who still had guts should step forward. Akihiro stepped up first and shattered a horn, shocking Musashi. Another warrior explained that Akihiro wasn't using just his power, but channeling the energy of his entire squad. It reminded Musashi of when the Obsidian Goddess had once merged everyone's energy into one massive attack. That's when it clicked. Humans didn't fight alone. Their strength multiplied when they fought together. As Akihiro broke another horn, Katsumi joined in too, blending his band's energy. Musashi finally understood. They weren't following Akihiro out of fear, but unity. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the command tent, Yotaro and Yusuji talked casually like old war buddies. Lord Sanada entered, dropping a bombshell. They had located the Obsidian Goddess. Yotaro was stunned. Sanada said her power could turn the tide of war, but warned that the enemy likely knew too, and spies might already be within their ranks. Back on deck, Musashi's confidence was shattered again. Other Bushi mocked his lousy sword control, and Akihiro publicly called him an inferior soldier. The others agreed, treating him like background noise. Their laughter hit harder than Akihiro's kicks. That night, Musashi packed his things, ready to disappear quietly, but Katsumi caught him. Katsumi, normally sharp-tongued, spoke softly for once. He told Musashi not to quit, that he might lack power, but his spirit was what kept the squad from falling apart. It was the kind of talk Musashi didn't know he needed. He thanked Katsumi, who admitted his motivation for fighting. Awaji Island was his home before the Oni invasion, and he wanted to reclaim it. That lit something in Musashi. For the first time, he began wondering what his purpose truly was. The next morning, Akihiro's unit assembled, one man short, but just as they prepared to move out, Musashi appeared, armor on and eyes sharp. The crowd cheered, with even Machiru smiling faintly. Though he still didn't know his destiny, Musashi decided that if fighting for Kojiru and Tsugumi gave his life meaning, then that was enough. Katsumi began training him to control Katetsu energy, barking orders like a drill sergeant. Musashi fumbled, earning plenty of yelling, but he didn't give up. Somewhere nearby, Machiru watched silently, her expression unreadable. Later that night, she sent a secret signal, revealing herself as a spy for the Black Dogs. Her handler, Yotaro, discussed their mission. Within 5 days, they'd take Awaji's ore and capture the Obsidian Goddess. Looking at Musashi's picture, they scoffed at how weak he seemed for being chosen by a god. As Machiru stared at the image, guilt filled her. She remembered her father, the man who named her his 3,000th daughter and trained her to be a perfect weapon. She was supposed to be heartless, but after meeting Musashi, the lines between duty and emotion began to blur. And for the first time, the princess spy started to question which side she was really on. Training was supposed to be simple. Swing the sword, focus your energy, and look cool doing it. But for Musashi, that was easier said than done. Katsumi, tired of watching him fumble around, told him to try channeling sword energy with someone else. Naturally, Musashi looked around and picked Machiru. Maybe, he thought, a little teamwork could help him connect, or at least impress her. Machiru agreed with a shy smile, happy to help, while the others looked skeptical. Kanatatsu muttered that this was either going to be a miracle or a disaster, and honestly, both seemed possible. But to everyone's shock, Machiru's sword energy actually flowed straight toward Musashi, and he caught it. For a brief second, They smiled at each other like a power couple in a fantasy love story. Then, out of nowhere, black crystals exploded from their bodies, merging into one massive crystal floating above the fortress. The sight caused absolute chaos below. Warriors panicked, shouting that the sky was falling, while Kuriko and the others scrambled to contain the situation. Inside the crystal, Machiru whispered that her father already knew what was happening and that they needed to escape fast. Outside, the Bushi threw everything they had at the floating crystal until Kuriko, calm but annoyed, used her blade energy to trap and shrink it. When it finally shattered, Musashi and Machiru dropped to the ground, looking like two kids who just broke the world's biggest light bulb. Kuriko wasted no time. She accused Machiru of working with the enemy spies and demanded they both be interrogated. Michiru's eyes widened. If Kuriko investigated, everyone would find out Musashi was the host of the Obsidian Goddess. Acting fast, she whispered to Lord Yusuji, who immediately ordered her capture. The next thing Musashi knew, he was tied to a wooden cross in the middle of the camp like some discount villain. He shouted that he was innocent, but no one believed him. Kojiru and Tsugumi arrived, furious, yelling that they'd save him no matter what. Meanwhile, Machiru watched from the shadows, guilt eating away at her as she swore to rescue him herself. That night, she tried to use the power of the black crystal to break him free, but Kuriko had already predicted her move and set a trap. The crystal reacted, sending a bright pulse across the island that revealed Yotaro's exact location. Lord Yusuji gathered the troops immediately, announcing a full-scale assault on Awaji Island. Their mission was simple: kill Yotaro, take his head, and destroy the Kishin guarding him. He explained that the Kishin's power came from its 8 horns. Break them all and the beast would fall. To make things spicy, he promised that whoever got a horn would be rewarded with a whole city. Everyone cheered like it was a festival. But then, Nao, ever the buzzkill, ordered Musashi and Machiru to remain behind until proven innocent. That announcement turned the whole camp awkwardly silent. Akihiro stormed off, too proud to argue, while Machiru slipped away and knocked out Musashi's guard. Before Musashi could respond, the ground shook. Dozens of Oni appeared from the shadows, and to Musashi's horror, they could talk. Even worse, they called Machiru their sister. She looked down in shame as they revealed the truth. Her real mission was to find and claim the Obsidian Goddess, even if it meant killing Musashi. Musashi's heart dropped. He refused to believe it, but Machiru tearfully confirmed everything. The Oni mocked her, saying she'd gone soft after falling in love with her target. Black crystals burst from her body, projecting a hologram-like vision of Yotaro's father. He ordered her to finish the mission. Her siblings joined in, threatening that if she didn't comply, she'd be disowned and hunted down. Musashi, remembering his own lonely past and how he too was crushed by expectations, refused to let history repeat itself. He grabbed Machiru's hand and pulled her away, shouting that she deserved to live freely. That defiance made her heart waver, and for the first time, she chose Musashi over her family. Her siblings roared, branding her a traitor, and commanded the Oni to attack. Machiru shielded Musashi with her crystal energy, taking heavy damage as they fought. The battlefield turned chaotic, until Nao, Kojiru, and a squad of Bushi stormed in. The Oni's regeneration caught everyone off guard, and their eerie conversation about the Obsidian Goddess made things even worse. Musashi tried to wake Machiru, but she was barely breathing. Kuriko appeared again, and to Musashi's surprise, she healed Machiru's wounds instead of finishing her off. She smiled and told Musashi that maybe they could be friends, which honestly creeped him out more than the Oni did. But the calm didn't last. The Oni siblings decided that eating Machiru would make them stronger. Everyone froze as Yotaro's image returned, explaining that in his twisted family, the weak existed only to feed the strong. Then, before anyone could react, the siblings merged into a massive Oni, their bodies fusing into a grotesque monster. Its hide was tougher than steel, and even Nao's attacks couldn't pierce its defenses. They revealed they had Orochi's blood flowing through them, giving them absurd power. As the beast unleashed destruction, smaller Oni rushed toward the nearby towns. The Bushi scrambled to defend the civilians while Musashi begged to help. Kuriko, carrying the unconscious Machiru, told him to stay put and watch how real warriors fight. The giant Oni mocked them all, shrugging off every attack. Yotaro's voice echoed again, ordering his children to conquer the fortress and bring him the goddess, even if they had to kill Machiru for it. That was the last straw for Musashi. He roared back, rejecting Yotaro's twisted idea of strength through domination. Yotaro only laughed, saying his eat or be eaten philosophy was no different from how Bushi follow a single leader. But then, Lord Sanada stepped forward, ready to prove him wrong. Drawing his yellow Katetsu blade, Sanada shared its power with every Bushi around him. Kuriko quickly explained to Musashi that yellow blade users could pass their energy to others, amplifying their strength, but only if there was trust and unity between them. The Sanada warriors linked their powers together, their blades glowing like molten gold. The air crackled as their combined energy formed a massive dragon-shaped aura that coiled around them. With Nio leading the charge, the chain of warriors struck together, unleashing a devastating attack that ripped through the massive Oni, ending the fight in a blinding explosion. Even in victory, Lord Yusuji and Kuriko were uneasy. Something didn't add up. How had the Oni gotten through their barrier in the first place? Their answer arrived like a nightmare. From the shadows, Shiru appeared. He admitted he was the one who opened the path for the Oni, and now he wanted one thing: Yusuji's sword. Kuriko and the others reacted instantly, creating an energy circuit to trap him, while Nao prepared to strike. But before he could, the connection between the warriors started to falter. A new figure emerged: Seiroku, a yellow energy user and Shirou's ally. With one swift motion, Seiroku severed their link, nullifying the entire energy network. Nio realized too late that Seiroku's ability could cancel out shared energy. Trapped and weakened, the Bushi were helpless. Seiroku sneered, announcing that the Sanada band would be wiped out. He ordered Shirou to finish them, but Shirou didn't move. Instead, he looked at Musashi, his grin widening. He said it had been too long since they'd met, and then turned his gaze to Machiru, remarking that she felt just like the Obsidian Goddess. With that, he created a dark portal beneath them. Before anyone could react, Musashi and Machiru were pulled in and vanished. They reappeared in a strange landscape, an eerie void that seemed to exist beneath Awaji Island. From the glowing cracks in the ground, Orochi's massive head loomed in the distance. Standing before them was Yotaro. His voice was calm but cold as he demanded that Musashi hand over Machiru. Musashi refused instantly, his grip tightening on his sword. Yotaro drew his own blade, saying he would take the goddess by force if needed. He mentioned that the last vessel had kept secrets from Musashi, confusing him even more. Musashi tried asking if Yotaro knew Kojiru's father, but Yotaro dismissed the question entirely. He lunged forward to strike, but Michiru woke up just in time and grabbed Musashi, begging her father to stop. Yotaro ordered her to hold him still, but she broke down crying, saying she couldn't. She confessed that even though she barely had time with Musashi, she couldn't bear to lose him. She didn't want to fight, she just wanted to make him happy. For a moment, Yotaro's cold expression softened. He sheathed his sword and asked her calmly what her plan was. Michiru said she wanted to remove the Obsidian Goddess from Musashi without hurting him. Yotaro praised her, calling her a worthy daughter, and pulled her into a hug. But Musashi noticed something off. The glint in Yotaro's eye was all wrong. Before he could shout a warning, Yotaro suddenly drove his blade forward. Musashi kicked him away, saving Machiru by a hair. Yotaro simply sighed, saying goodbye to his daughter. The next second, Michiru's body turned completely to stone, and she fell, lifeless, into the abyss below. Chaos tore through the battlefield as Orochi continued its rampage, crushing what was left of the Sanada fortress like it was made of paper. Nao barked orders for everyone to evacuate while he faced Seiroku head-on, but the man's speed was unreal. In a flash of yellow light, Seiroku slashed through Nao's defense, leaving him wounded and stripped of his proud title, the Dragon Fighter. Meanwhile, Shiru, ever the calm psycho, sighed impatiently and muttered that the Obsidian Goddess should have been taken by now. Beneath the fortress, Musashi faced Yotaro, his fury boiling over. He demanded to know what Yotaro had done to Machiru. The man simply smiled and said she wasn't dead, merely silenced. He added, without an ounce of remorse, that her stone form was her true nature. According to him, Machiru was never human at all. She was an Oni, a fragment born from Orochi's very body. A failed experiment, Yotaro called her, because unlike the others, she didn't inherit great power. She only inherited humanity. Musashi's blood boiled. He remembered all the times people had called him useless, all the years of rejection and being seen as less. He shouted that Michiru was stronger than anyone he knew, kind, loyal, and brave. He begged Yotaro not to abandon her again. For a moment, Yotaro softened. He admitted she was indeed special, then, with a wave of his hand, brought her back. But when Machiru opened her eyes, her warmth was gone. Her eyes were blank, her voice empty. She looked at Musashi and asked who he was. Yotaro coolly explained that he'd erased her memories, said emotions were a weakness, a virus that made her disobedient. Michiru smiled faintly and ran to her father, oblivious to what she had lost. Musashi's heart cracked as he watched the girl he fought for cheer for the man who had broken her. Overcome with rage, Musashi charged Yotaro, but the man barely moved. His strength was overwhelming. He knocked Musashi back again and again until the young warrior could barely stand. Without his Katetsu blade, Musashi couldn't even summon sword energy. Yotaro, clearly amused, formed a glowing, ring-shaped weapon and aimed straight at him. Musashi tried one last desperate attack, but Yotaro dodged easily and pinned him down. Then, just as the blade was about to pierce him, Machiru gasped. Her memory flickered for a second. She called out his name and stabbed Yotaro from behind with her crystal shards. It wasn't enough. Yotaro turned, furious, and backhanded her across the floor. He warned her never to disobey him again and threatened to erase her emotions entirely. Tears welled up in Michiru's eyes as she nodded, whispering an apology to Musashi. But before Yotaro could finish her punishment, Shirou's teleportation spell began to destabilize, and Musashi's body started to dissolve into light. Back at the surface, the Takeda Bushi finally broke through Orochi's barrier, storming into the fortress to rescue the survivors. Nao, bloodied but alive, guided Musashi, Kojiru, and Tsugumi into a hidden chamber beneath Yusuji Castle. He told them the harsh truth. The power of the Obsidian Goddess sealed inside Musashi was the only thing that could destroy the Kishin. Kojiru immediately suggested retreating, saying it wasn't worth dying for, but Nao calmed him down, saying no one was being forced into this fight. Then he noticed the bundle Tsugumi carried, Musashi's sword. He smiled, unwrapping it and returning it to its rightful owner. That's when Musashi learned their real plan: to use his sword as proof of his loyalty, fake his execution, and escape together. Nao praised Kojiru and Tsugumi for their loyalty, but reminded them that they weren't just fighting for him anymore. Thousands of lives hung in the balance. Musashi nodded, realizing this mission was no longer about revenge or guilt. It was about saving everyone. Deeper underground, they reached an ancient chamber where the truth of the Obsidian Goddess was hidden. The walls glowed faintly. Nao began his story. Long ago, when humanity was on the brink of extinction, a mysterious woman appeared. She wielded the world's first Katetsu blade, a weapon capable of bending blade energy itself. She became known as the Obsidian Goddess, a being so powerful she united warriors against the Oni. Even after her death, her soul lingered, reincarnating within chosen individuals. Her power lay dormant until the right person, or the right moment, awakened it. Nao believed Musashi was that person, but Musashi wasn't so sure. He remembered the goddess herself once telling him he wasn't worthy. Still, Nao handed him a strange goblet filled with shimmering black liquid, the blood of the goddess. He claimed it could awaken her true power. Kojiru immediately grew suspicious, questioning why someone like Nao would give away such a treasure. Nao smiled faintly, saying there was no time for doubt. Orochi's forces were growing, and Seiroku's interference made it impossible for their blade energies to connect. They had to gamble everything. He revealed one more secret. The Black Dogs, also known as the Obsidian Eight, were once humans who served the Oni. They were killers who had used Katetsu blades to massacre Bushi for centuries, and now they were gathering again. With no other option, Musashi accepted the mission. Nao held the goblet up, ordering him to drink. Musashi hesitated, but before he could protest, Nao poured the liquid down his throat. The effect was immediate. His body convulsed violently, black veins spreading across his skin. Tsugumi screamed his name, but within moments, the pain stopped. Disappointed but still determined, they pressed on. Yet, as they left the chamber, a faint black glow pulsed from his chest. Something inside him had awakened. Elsewhere, the Yusuji army stormed Awaji Island in full force. Kuriko commanded the assault, launching wave after wave of Bushi against the Oni. Kanatu, still furious from his earlier defeat to Seiroku, charged into battle, vowing to protect the Yusuji Bushi no matter what. The fight was brutal. Seiroku danced around him like a demon, using invisible wires, flashes of light, and raw speed to cut him apart piece by piece. Kanatu was blinded, burned, and nearly crippled, but he refused to fall. He remembered Tatsuomi's words, that heroes didn't exist, only men who gave hope through strength. With renewed resolve, Kanatu used his bandaged sword to counter Seiroku's tricks. He turned his blade energy inward, severing the strings that bound him, and struck back with everything he had. Seiroku lunged again, but Kanatu caught the blade with his bare hand and shattered it, breaking Seiroku's barrier along with it. With a final thrust, he pierced Seiroku's chest and ended the fight. At the same time, Naotora and the Takeda Bushi cornered Shiru inside a containment field. Shirou smirked, unimpressed, and reminded her that Bushi never fought alone, except for her. Naotora recognized his strange ring and realized they'd met 10 years ago, but Shirou brushed it off like it didn't matter. Then, in the middle of their duel, Shirou's sword glowed pure white. The rarest and most dangerous of all, he muttered that Shirou was a white Bushi, something believed to exist only in legends. Shirou grinned, saying that fighting against blue users like Naotora bored him, but killing them was always entertaining. Naotora tightened her grip, glaring back. She was a blue Bushi, one of the most disciplined types, known for resilience over raw power. And she wasn't about to let a smug killer make a mockery of that. The two lunged at each other, their blades colliding in a storm of colorless and blue energy that tore the battlefield apart, marking the beginning of one of the most intense fights in Bushi history. The clash between Shiru and Yotaro shook the battlefield like two gods trying to prove who was better at breaking the rules of physics. Shirou kept the upper hand, cutting through everything in his path while Yotaro's blue blade barely held on. But Yotaro wasn't the type to give up just because someone looked cooler. He shouted that even a blue blade, the so-called weakest, could surpass any other color with sheer grit. Shirou grinned like a maniac and decided to end it in style. With one swing, he literally sliced open the sky, summoning lava from a volcano above Yotaro's head. Everyone thought it was over, until Yotaro calmly waved his blade, turning water vapor into a tidal wave that instantly cooled the lava into stone. Shirou blinked, visibly pissed that his dramatic finish just got turned into geology class. Nearby, Aoshi remembered their early sword trials, when they first discovered they were blue Bushis. Everyone had been disappointed back then, thinking blue meant mediocre. But Yotaro had told them otherwise, that blue was the color of stone, and stone could connect all elements: water, fire, earth. He taught them that by understanding the soul of stone, they could bend nature itself, nearly matching the power of the Kishin. Aoshi shouted that Yotaro wasn't just a captain because he looked tough. He was tough. Proving it, Yotaro unleashed a monstrous tiger made of fire and water, its roar shaking the ground. Shirou quickly realized all the ore in the region was reacting to Yotaro's energy, letting him fight like a damn Kishin himself. It finally clicked how Yotaro escaped his earlier trap. The man literally fused with the battlefield. Still, Shirou wouldn't lose easily. He destroyed the elemental tigers and teleported them both into an isolated space. No allies, no distractions, just a fight to the death. With his usual smugness, Shirou asked why Yotaro created a power that couldn't even cut a Kishin's horn. Yotaro smirked, saying he didn't plan to win by being a Kishin copycat. Instead, he gathered fire and water into a small swirling orb that condensed into a black blade. He explained that he forged this ability after witnessing someone like Shiru wipe out his brother's entire unit. Before Shirou could process the insult, Yotaro dashed forward, slashing him clean across the chest. Crystals exploded from Shirou's body, shattering his blade before he disintegrated in a violent burst of light. Yotaro stumbled back to his allies, battered but alive. The group erupted in cheers. He admitted he couldn't kill Shirou completely, but managed to destroy his Katetsu blade, removing another of the Obsidian 8 from the war. His right hand, however, was completely fried, leaving him unable to use blade energy for a while. Meanwhile, Musashi's group was locked in a brutal fight against Oni. The Shimezu warriors arrogantly told everyone else to stand aside, claiming they'd handle it. Katsumi, never one to take insults quietly, jumped forward and obliterated an Oni on his own. Everyone stopped mid-fight. Musashi looked at him like, where the hell was this power before? Katsumi shrugged and said he'd just been holding back because Akihiro ordered restraint earlier, but now no more rules. The group split into two squads, one led by the Shimezu, the other by Katsumi. Deep underground, Yotaro led Machiru through a cavern filled with glowing stone pillars, his expression colder than ever. Machiru followed, her heart heavy. She could tell her father no longer looked at her with affection, only calculation. They entered a hall filled with lifeless young girls, Yotaro's failed daughters. He declared he would surpass all beings, mortal or divine. His next experiment was to merge himself with the Kishin. Machiru's heart sank as he stepped into a circle of energy and began fusing his body with obsidian and demonic flesh. In moments, Yotaro transformed into a horrifying monster, half man, half Oni god, glowing like molten glass. Some of his daughters were absorbed and reshaped into swords that floated around him like cursed satellites. Now a monster, decimated most of the Bushi army, leaving only Musashi's group standing. The Shimazu warriors realized his horn might be his weak point and tried to form an energy link, but the floating swords kept severing it. When one blade almost impaled Haruhisa, Musashi jumped in, breaking it with his bare hands. He told them he'd help however he could. While the Shimazu struggled, Musashi focused on smashing the cursed swords one by one, clearing paths for their energy to connect. Katsumi noticed what Musashi was doing. Even though he couldn't join the link himself, he was helping them unite. Just when it looked like they might turn the tide, Yotaro blasted Musashi into the ground. The swords surged again, tearing through the ranks. Natsuki, panting, realized Musashi wasn't fighting for glory but just to make sure no one died alone. Inspired, the Shimazu finally formed their chain and linked to Akihiro. Their combined strength surged, and Akihiro charged, shattering Yotaro's horn in a single powerful strike. Elsewhere, Naotora got word that the last of the enemy Bushi had fallen. He rallied his forces toward the Kishin, but Musashi's group soon discovered something horrifying. Yotaro's broken horn contained no Katetsu. Instead, his body twisted again, transforming into a massive white serpent formed of obsidian and devouring stones from Uramine. Yotaro explained grimly that if the serpent reached the Kishin, it would feed it and make it unstoppable. The Shimazu decided to stop the beast. They finally accepted Musashi as a full ally, suggesting they could create an 8-link chain together. Musashi agreed, but when he tried to include Akihiro in the plan, the atmosphere turned cold. Haruhisa confronted Akihiro, asking if he cared at all about their comrades dying on the front lines. Akihiro said bluntly that everyone was just a stepping stone for him to gain more power. Haruhisa snapped and punched him across the face, shouting that their lives weren't tools. Akihiro angrily threw something down, a force marker once used in their childhood to plan battles. Musashi picked it up, recognizing it as a symbol of their brotherhood long lost. As they neared the serpent, Haruhisa attacked its horn but couldn't break it. He called for Musashi and Fuyui to link their energy with him. Akihiro tried to hijack the link but failed, forcing Musashi to guess that Akihiro's real dream had always been to break the horn together with his brothers. The Shimazu brothers flashed back to their youth, to the sword trial where Akihiro was revealed to have a red soul while the others had blue. Their father, ever the toxic patriarch, declared that red souls were destined to lead blue ones, forcing them to duel. Akihiro won easily, but instead of celebrating, he begged to give up the role to Haruhisa. Their father refused, forcing Haruhisa to serve Akihiro forever. From that day, resentment poisoned their bond. Haruhisa wanted the red soul. Akihiro wanted peace. Neither got what they wanted. Back in the present, the serpent continued crawling toward the Kishin. Akihiro finally ordered everyone to link their power. Though reluctant, they obeyed. He took all their energy into his blade and charged forward, striking the serpent's horn with everything he had. The blow slowed the creature, but before Akihiro could finish the job, one of Orochi's heads burst from the ground, devouring both the serpent and Akihiro in a single horrific bite. Everyone froze. The energy link stayed active, but Akihiro was gone. The others shouted for retreat before Orochi absorbed more power. Musashi turned to Haruhisa, furious, saying, "A real brother protects, not resents." Haruhisa admitted through clenched teeth that he hated Akihiro, that he believed he would have been the better leader if he'd been born with the red soul. Musashi stepped closer, his tone cold. He said, if that was true, then Akihiro's death just made Haruhisa the leader he always wanted to be. The silence that followed was heavier than any blade. Inside Orochi's monstrous body, Akihiro wandered through chaos, chasing the white serpent's trail. He quietly accepted that this might be his final battle. Maybe his death could finally give everyone else peace. But before he could act noble for too long, a sudden impact knocked him out cold. In the haze of unconsciousness, Akihiro dreamed of his brother Haruhisa, back when they were kids and promised to protect each other forever. When he woke up, reality smacked him in the face. Haruhisa was right there, fighting the serpent head-on like a maniac. Confused, Akihiro called out, but Haruhisa just tossed him a small wooden token, the same one they used in their childhood war games. That tiny relic hit harder than any sword. Akihiro admitted that he'd left everyone behind because he wanted to keep them safe. As a Red Soul Bushi, it was his job to break the horn, even if it meant standing alone. But Haruhisa's rescue broke their energy link. Now they couldn't finish the mission. Musashi, of course, refused to give up. He suggested reconnecting the chain, and soon enough, Akihiro saw that the Shimazu brothers, Musashi, and even Katsumi had somehow followed him inside Orochi. The whole gang was back together, though not for long if they didn't move fast. The Shimazu brothers encouraged Akihiro to reconnect, but his injuries made it impossible. Musashi volunteered to take his place, but Akihiro stubbornly refused, saying it would make his entire existence meaningless. Haruhisa, in rare emotional form, told him that none of that mattered. They were brothers, not soldiers in a spreadsheet. That broke through Akihiro's pride, and together, they reignited the link. With renewed strength, Akihiro charged the serpent's horn and shattered it in one blazing strike. As the serpent screamed, Kanatatsu's forces outside attacked Orochi's remaining horns, finally bringing the beast down for good. When the Shimazu brothers were praised for their heroics, Akihiro quickly redirected the credit, saying it was teamwork and maybe a little divine luck. Haruhisa just smiled, telling him their names would be remembered in legend. He even thanked Musashi for finding that old wooden piece. Akihiro promised to repay him someday, preferably in a world not filled with exploding monsters. But their victory celebration didn't last long. The Bushi realized something was off. The Katetsu energy wasn't flowing into their swords. That could only mean one thing. Something or someone was still alive. Meanwhile, Kojiro, Tigumi, and their group were still fighting Oni while searching for Tatsuomi Yusuji. The ground trembled and black crystals sprouted everywhere like death flowers. Kanatatsu refused to retreat, shouting that victory meant nothing without finding their lord. Musashi, never one to sit still, joined him. Katsumi and Akihiro followed when they saw the Katetsu energy streaming toward the mountain. They soon found Kojiro's group escorting Tatsuomi, who, despite everything, smiled proudly and said he knew they'd win. Kanatatsu ran to him like a happy puppy. Tatsuomi told Musashi that while he was captured, Machiru had spoken to him. She couldn't remember much about Musashi, but she felt that he was important. Her father had ordered her to forget him and discard every emotion, convincing her that she, like everyone else, was worthless. Musashi clenched his fists, refusing to accept that. He swore to find her. The group entered the mountain's hollow chamber, where a floating black sword pulsed with dark energy. Then a shadowy figure appeared, Yotaro, now fused with Orochi. He revealed the horrifying truth. The Bushi had only destroyed an empty shell. Machiru was the sword, his greatest creation, his perfect weapon. At first, Natsuki laughed it off, but that smile disappeared when Yotaro's first attack obliterated half the squad. Tatsuo ordered everyone to attack at once, and chaos erupted. Yotaro spun like a demon tornado, his obsidian blade slicing through Bushi and the mountain itself. Musashi charged, but his strikes bounced off. And to make things worse, Machiru, as the sword, started draining energy from his blade. Yotaro mocked them, explaining that she inherited the goddess's powers and could absorb energy endlessly. He unleashed a colossal slash, killing Moriboshi in one hit. When he turned toward Musashi again, his attacks suddenly softened, almost hesitant. Michiru's voice trembled. She called herself her father's perfect weapon, but flinched when she looked at Musashi. Something deep inside her remembered. At that moment, Naotora struck Yotaro from behind, shouting for Tatsuo to protect Musashi, the vessel of the goddess's blood. Kanatatsu confirmed it, and Tatsuo joined the fray. Naotora and Kanatatsu tried to land critical hits, but Yotaro overpowered both, cutting them down effortlessly. Tatsuo shouted for everyone to retreat, but Yotaro unleashed another devastating wave, killing even more, all gone in seconds. As Yotaro raised his sword toward Musashi, Kojiro jumped in to block. Time froze, and a portal opened, revealing Machiru's spirit within. Musashi stepped through the void where he and Machiru appeared as children once again. She confessed that remembering their past hurt too much. Musashi witnessed her birth, the day her father rejected her for not being the goddess and left her to rot. He saw the loneliness she carried and realized it mirrored his own emptiness. Machiru said she now remembered him and the warmth he brought to her cold world. Musashi gently told her that emptiness wasn't a curse. It was just space waiting to be filled. She smiled and transformed back into her adult form, glowing faintly. She explained that she couldn't return to being human. The black stone inside her father had turned her into a weapon. She asked Musashi to destroy it, saying his goddess blood had fully awakened. With that, Musashi unleashed his power, channeling the golden light of the goddess herself. The battlefield lit up as he gathered blade energy from every nearby warrior. Kojiro and Tsugumi watched in awe. This wasn't the goddess appearing, this was Musashi controlling her power. But Yotaro wasn't done. He started absorbing energy too, screaming that he'd never be complete until he devoured everything. Tatsuo shouted that Musashi only drank 1/5 of the goddess's blood, meaning he was fighting with just a fraction of her strength. Their clash split the mountain apart. Yotaro struck hard, wounding Musashi's sword arm, but Musashi caught the next attack with one finger. Everyone froze. He'd realized the energy wasn't flowing into his sword, it was flowing into him. Channeling it into his right hand, he unleashed a storm of golden punches that shattered Yotaro's armor, knocking the black stone free. Machiru begged to talk to her father one last time. Standing before him, she rejected his twisted dream of becoming a god, saying all she ever wanted was to spend time with him. When he refused to understand, she turned to Musashi, asking him to destroy the stone. Musashi nodded and promised that afterward they'd search for new treasures together. But Machiru confessed she wouldn't survive once the stone was gone. It was her source of life. She said she was ready to disappear if it meant freeing her father. Yotaro, however, revealed only he would vanish completely, since part of Machiru was still human. His body began to crumble from the forbidden technique he used. With tears in her eyes, Machiru said she hated his cruelty and pride, but she still loved him because, despite everything, he was her father. Yotaro finally saw her as her own person, not a failed experiment. Hearing those words, he smiled faintly for the first time. Together, Musashi and Machiru destroyed the stone, ending it all. Yotaro dissolved into fragments of Katetsu, finally at peace. 2 weeks later, Tatsuo's divine mantle saved most soldiers from death. The war ended. Musashi helped Katsumi rebuild his homeland, delivering food and supplies. During an honor ceremony, Kojiro and Tsugumi presented Tatsuo with a scroll bearing Jisai Kanamaki's signature, Musashi's father. Tatsuo said he found no official record but promised to ask other clans, believing Jisai once played a crucial role. It was one of the two things Musashi had requested after agreeing to drink the rest of the goddess's blood. The other? A single day of freedom for Machiru. Musashi spent that day with her, eating, laughing, exploring the market like two two normal people. They met Momori and Natsuki, who showed them matching rings said to keep couples together forever. Musashi bought one for her. As the sun set by the ocean, he returned her Katetsu blade. Machiru began to fade, telling him to fill the emptiness in his heart. She smiled one last time before merging with the sword, her spirit finally free. Later, as the surviving Bushi prepared to depart, Kanatatsu apologized for not finishing off the enemy. But Tatsuo said the 8 remained strong no matter what. Yet in a distant place, Katsumi awoke in darkness, surrounded by the Obsidian 8, their eyes glowing. And that is the end of this wild saga. If you're still here after all that chaos, you're an absolute legend. So let's confuse our fake fans. Comment, "She has the sword" down below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and prepare yourselves, because the next recap is going to be even crazier.